let's talk about your cervix and the amazing things that it does during the laboring process. There are 4 key things to know about what happens to the cervix. The first one we'll talk about is the ripening or the softening process. And basically, for a woman who's preconception or a woman going through the majority of her pregnancy, the cervix, the length of it is about 3 to 4 centimeters long. And towards the end of pregnancy, and definitely once labor has actually begun, the cervix starts to get soft and thin out, which leads to the effacement or the thinning process. That's the second thing we'll talk about. And so if the average woman's cervix is about 4 centimeters in length prior to when labor begins, when she's having a cervical check by a midwife or a physician or a nurse, and maybe that person says you're about 50% effaced, that means that the cervix is doing what it's supposed to do throughout the process of labor, and it is thinning out, and it's now about 2 centimeters in length. So you've gotten about halfway through the thickness of how your cervix started out at the beginning, and eventually the woman needs to get to 100% effaced, which means that the cervix is completely thinned out and or is nearly undetectable by the person who's doing the check. There's also something to know about cervical position, and when people are talking about birth, they talk about baby coming through the birth canal, and I sometimes think of canal and like a tunnel in the same way, so we can refer to the cervix as the birthing tunnel for this video. And there are like 3 phases throughout the tunnel that are how the cervix changes in position. So the first one is called a posterior position, and that is how a woman's cervix is all the time. When you're just an average menstruating woman, or if you're pregnant, the cervix is posterior. It serves as a barrier between your insides and the outsides, really. But also, while pregnant, it's keeping everything closed and keeping that baby up in the uterus safely. And then the second stage is called the mid position, which is pretty much how it sounds. It's right in the middle. So it's not all the way facing towards the back of the woman's body, but it's definitely not facing front, or anterior position, which is how the cervix is positioned at the time of labor and birth. All cervix have to be at the anterior position in order to make way for baby to come out. And then the last part of the cervical ripening and preparation process is what we refer to as the dilation, and that's what probably people know most commonly about the cervix, is that you have to dilate up to 10 centimeters. When you are fully dilated, your cervix is opened up to 10 centimeters, which is about like this, give or take. Different people's hands will make a different sized circle, but your cervix starts out closed, or maybe at a 1 centimeter, so like this, the average woman's pinky finger, and then slowly it dilates big enough for the baby's head and body to be born. I think I said the cervix is closed before labor, and the process of the ripening and opening and the thinning out, that can happen over the course of several weeks. A woman could walk around dilated at 2 or 3 centimeters for 4 weeks leading up until the birthing day with no issue. And then for some women, there's no dilation that begins until the actual laboring happens and contractions are steady. Some women, it takes a long time to go from 0 to 10. Typically, the longest time of dilation is from 0 to 5 centimeters, and after 5 centimeters, things pick up a little bit, but again, that varies between woman to woman and from pregnancy to pregnancy. So there's so many amazing changes that your cervix goes through over the course of life as a woman, but definitely throughout the labor and birth process. All the while making it the perfect place for baby to be born, and just one of the many million things that I'm so amazed about for women's bodies and what we can do to bring forth new life.